The city of Abuja was just waking up. Golden sunlight stretched across the skyline, reflecting off towering glass buildings and polished rooftops. Cars moved in steady rhythm, and the quiet hum of ambition filled the air. At the very top of one of the most sophisticated buildings in the city sat Kola Adebayo. His office was a masterpiece. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls revealed a breathtaking panoramic view of Abuja. Inside, everything spoke of power and precision. Italian marble floors, a custom-built mahogany desk, ambient LED lighting hidden within sleek ceiling panels, and curated Nigerian art pieces that told stories of heritage and resilience. Behind him hung a large portrait, not of a business achievement, but of a woman, his late wife. Kola stood still, staring at it. His fingers tightened slightly around the glass of his untouched coffee. 5 years, he murmured. 5 years since she was gone. 5 years since laughter last filled this space. 5 years since his life became quiet. She had been everything he wasn't. Where he was structured, she was free. Where he was serious, she was laughter. Where he built empires, she built warmth. Even now, he could still hear her voice echoing in his mind. Kola, one day you'll learn that not everything is about work. He closed his eyes briefly. If only you were here to remind me again, he whispered. A soft knock broke the silence. Come in. His assistant, Tunde, stepped in carefully. Good morning, sir. Kola didn't turn immediately. Morning. You have a 10 a.m. board meeting, a 12 p.m. investor call, and— Cancel the investor call, Kola interrupted calmly. Tunde paused. Yes, sir. There was a slight hesitation before he continued. Sir, your mother called again. Kola exhaled slowly. Of course she did. She wants to visit this weekend. Kola finally turned, adjusting his cufflinks. Let her come. Tunde nodded, then added carefully, Sir, she mentioned something about marriage again. A faint, almost invisible smile crossed Kola's face, but it carried no joy. She always does. After Tunde left, the room fell silent again. Kola walked toward the massive glass window, hands in his pockets. Below him, the world moved fast, everyone chasing something: money, success, love. But for Kola, success had come at a cost, and love had been taken. Later that evening, his home stood as a reflection of his inner world. A luxurious mansion in one of Abuja's most exclusive districts. Modern Nigerian architecture blended with smart home technology. Motion sensor lighting illuminated the walkway as his car pulled in. Inside, the living room was stunning. Neutral tones, velvet sofas, sculptural decor, and a grand chandelier that cast soft golden light across the space. Yet it felt empty. No laughter, no scattered shoes, no voice calling his name. Just silence. He dropped his keys on the marble console table and loosened his tie. For a moment, he just stood there, listening to nothing. His eyes drifted to a corner of the room, a piano. She used to play every evening, soft melodies that filled the house with life. Kola walked slowly toward it and ran his fingers lightly across the keys. A faint sound echoed. Memories flooded in instantly. Her laughter, her voice, her presence. He pulled his hand back quickly. Too much, still too much. That night, his mother arrived earlier than expected. Kola, she called warmly as she stepped inside. He forced a smile and walked toward her. Mama. She hugged him tightly, holding him longer than usual. When she pulled away, she studied his face. You're working too hard again. I'm fine, he replied calmly. She shook her head and walked further into the living room, taking in the perfectly arranged but lifeless space. This house is too quiet, she said. Kola didn't respond. She turned to him. You cannot continue like this. I'm okay, Mama. No, she said firmly. You are surviving, not living. Silence. Her voice softened. You loved her. We all know that. Kola looked away. But she is gone, my son, she continued gently, and life is still here. He swallowed hard. I don't think I can do it again. His mother stepped closer. You don't need to replace her, she said. No one can. She placed her hand on his shoulder. But you can open your heart again. Later that night, Kola sat alone on his balcony. The cool Abuja breeze brushed against his skin as city lights flickered in the distance. His phone buzzed. A message from his mother. Love doesn't come twice the same way, but it comes again, if you allow it. He stared at the words for a long time, then slowly locked his phone. For the first time in years, Kola considered the possibility, not of replacing love, but of finding it again. Unbeknownst to him, 3 women in his company were already watching him, waiting, hoping, calculating, and soon he would discover that not all love is real. The headquarters of Kola's tech empire came alive every morning like a living organism. Employees streamed in through the glass revolving doors, their reflections gliding across polished marble floors. The scent of fresh coffee blended with the quiet hum of innovation. Soft instrumental music played in the background, creating an atmosphere that felt both luxurious and productive. Digital screens lined the walls, displaying global analytics, stock movements, and real-time company performance. Every corner of the building whispered success, and at the center of it all was Kola Adebayo. But today, something else moved quietly beneath the surface. Attention, curiosity, expectation. Because within these walls, 3 women had their eyes on him, each for very different reasons. Vivian Okafor, the queen of appearances. Vivian stepped out of the elevator like she was stepping onto a runway. Her heels clicked confidently against the marble floor as heads subtly turned. She wore a fitted designer dress that hugged her perfectly, paired with a handbag that cost more than some employees' monthly salaries. She didn't just dress well, she announced herself. Her office was just as striking. Modern glass partitions, gold-accented decor, a sculptural desk, and a floor mirror that reflected her image from every angle. Even her workspace felt like a luxury suite. She dropped her bag and checked her reflection. Perfect. Always perfect. Her colleague, Anita, leaned against the door. Vivian, you're glowing this morning, oh. What's the occasion? Vivian smirked slightly. No occasion, just preparation. Preparation for what? Anita teased. Vivian turned, folding her arms with quiet confidence. For my future. Anita raised an eyebrow. You mean Kola? Vivian didn't deny it. Let's be honest, she said, walking toward her desk. A man like Kola doesn't come around twice. Wealth, power, connections, that's not something you ignore. Anita laughed. And love? Vivian paused briefly, then shrugged. Love grows, she said casually. Comfort comes first. Her phone buzzed, an alert about a luxury fashion sale in Dubai. She smiled. That's the kind of life I deserve, she added softly. And in her mind, Kola was not a partner. He was a gateway. Isabella Mensah, the strategist. On another floor, Isabella's world looked different. Less flashy, more controlled. Her office had a clean, minimalist design, dark wood furniture, sharp lines, soft recessed lighting, and neatly arranged documents. Everything had a purpose. Nothing was out of place, just like her. She sat behind her desk, reviewing reports with intense focus. Her glasses rested lightly on her face, giving her an even sharper presence. Her colleague David walked in. You're early as always. I like staying ahead, she replied, without looking up. David leaned on the desk. So, what's your next move? She finally looked at him. What do you mean? He smiled knowingly. Isabella leaned back slightly, crossing her legs. You see opportunity, she said calmly, and you either take it or watch someone else take it. And you're planning to take it? A small, confident smile formed on her lips. I don't plan to stay where I am forever. She stood and walked toward the glass wall, overlooking the city. This company is powerful, she continued. But imagine having influence above it. Decision-making power. Global access. David nodded slowly. Marriage? Strategic alignment, she corrected. He laughed. You don't believe in love, do you? Isabella didn't answer immediately. Instead, she picked up her tablet and resumed her work. Love is unpredictable, she said finally. Power isn't. And to Isabella, Kola wasn't a man, he was a position. Chidinma Eze, the quiet strength. On a different floor, away from the noise of ambition and appearance, sat Chidinma. Her office was simple but beautiful in its own way. Soft beige walls, indoor plants placed carefully by the window, a wooden desk with a smooth natural finish, and framed artwork inspired by Nigerian culture. It felt warm, alive, real. She typed quietly on her laptop, focused on her work. A junior staff member, Blessing, rushed in nervously. "Ma, I made a mistake on the client report," she said, almost on the verge of tears. Chidinma looked up immediately. "Calm down," she said gently. "Let me see it." Blessing handed over the document with shaking hands. Chidinma reviewed it carefully. "It's not as bad as you think," she said with a reassuring smile. "We can fix this." "Really?" "Yes," she nodded. "Sit down. I'll show you how." They worked together patiently. No harsh words, no frustration, just guidance. After a few minutes, the issue was resolved. Blessing exhaled in relief. "Thank you so much, Ma. I thought I would lose my job." Chidinma smiled softly. No one learns without making mistakes. As Blessing left, she whispered to herself, "God bless you, Ma." Chidinma returned to her work quietly. No audience, no performance, just kindness. From the top floor, Kola stood by his window once again, unaware of the conversations, unaware of the intentions forming beneath him. But soon he would see, not their beauty, not their intelligence, but their hearts. Because in a world where people wear masks, he was about to remove his own and watch theirs fall. The idea didn't come suddenly. It had been building quietly in Kola's mind. Through every forced smile, every calculated conversation, every moment he felt people were speaking to his position instead of his person. He had seen admiration, he had seen respect, but he had not seen truth, and truth was what he needed now. That evening his office was dimly lit, the city of Abuja glowing softly beyond the glass walls. The usual hum of productivity had faded, leaving only silence and the faint ticking of the wall clock. Kola stood with his back to the room, hands clasped behind him. Tunde stood a few steps away, confused. "Sir, I don't understand," he said carefully. "You want to… what exactly?" Kola turned slowly. "I want to see them," he said calmly. "You see them every day, sir." "No," Kola replied, his tone sharper now. "I see what they want me to see." Silence. Tunde hesitated. "And this plan?" Kola walked toward his desk, pressing a button that dimmed the lights further. "I'm going undercover." Tunde blinked. "Undercover, as what?" Kola paused briefly, then said, "A gateman." Tunde almost laughed, but stopped when he realized Kola was serious. "Sir, with all due respect, this is risky." "Everything worth knowing comes with risk," Kola replied. "What if someone recognizes you?" "They won't." Kola opened a drawer and pulled out a small folder. Inside were documents, ID cards, and a uniform request. "I've already arranged everything," he said. Tunde stared at him. "You planned this?" Kola nodded. "For weeks. Becoming Adamu." The next morning came earlier than usual for Kola. But this time, he wasn't dressing as a billionaire. In a private section of the company's security unit, he stood before a mirror. Gone was the tailored suit. Gone were the polished shoes. Instead, he wore a neatly pressed but simple security uniform, navy blue, slightly oversized, with a name tag that read, Adamu. He adjusted the cap, pulling it low over his face. For a moment, he didn't recognize himself. And strangely, that was the point. One of the senior security officers, Musa, stood nearby, unaware of who he truly was. "You're the new recruit?" Musa asked. "Yes, sir," Kola replied, lowering his voice slightly. "From Kano?" "Yes," Musa nodded. "Good. Just do your job well, respect everyone, and don't cause trouble." "I won't, sir." Musa handed him a small baton and a radio. "Your post is at the main gate." Kola took them. Thank you. As he walked away, something felt different. Light. For the first time in years, no one was expecting anything from him. The gate, the company's entrance, looked different from this angle. Usually, Kola drove past it in seconds, barely noticing the people stationed there. Now he stood there, watching, observing, feeling. Employees began arriving. Some nodded politely. Some ignored him completely. Some didn't even see him. Kola leaned slightly against the gatepost, taking it all in. So this is what it feels like, to be invisible. A cleaner passed by, carrying a bucket. Good morning, she said with a small smile. Kola nodded. Good morning. She kept walking. No fear, no pressure, just normal human interaction. It felt real. A junior staff member approached nervously. Please, sir, where do I sign in? Kola pointed gently. Over there. Thank you, sir. Kola blinked. Sir. Not because of power, but respect. Simple. Unforced. A new perspective. As the morning progressed, Kola noticed something he had never paid attention to before. The way people treated others depended on what they thought those people were worth, not who they were. He watched executives walk past cleaners without a glance. He saw drivers being spoken to like they were invisible. He saw kindness in unexpected places, and coldness where he once saw charm. Each interaction was a revelation. He adjusted his cap slightly. Today, he whispered under his breath, I will see the truth. The first test approaches. In the distance, a familiar car pulled into the driveway. Sleek, black, elegant. Kola straightened immediately. Vivian. Even from afar, her presence was unmistakable. The way she stepped out of the car, the way she carried herself, the confidence, the pride. Kola's grip tightened slightly on his baton. This is it, he thought. No boardroom, no suits, no titles, just a man and a woman's true character. As Vivian approached the gate, Kola stepped forward, not as a CEO, not as a billionaire, but as a damu. A simple gateman, invisible, unimportant, replaceable. And yet, in that moment, he held the power of truth. Kola didn't need to see the plate number. He already knew. Vivian. The car came to a gentle stop. The driver stepped out quickly and opened the back door. Then she emerged, elegant, confident, commanding attention without even trying. Her heels touched the ground with precision, each step deliberate, as she adjusted her designer sunglasses. Her outfit was flawless, a perfectly tailored dress, subtle gold jewelry, and a handbag that whispered luxury. People nearby glanced instinctively. Vivian didn't look at them. She expected to be seen. Kola stepped forward, maintaining his role. Good morning, Ma, he said respectfully, offering a slight bow of his head. No response. Vivian continued walking, her eyes fixed ahead as though he didn't exist. Kola hesitated for half a second, then followed gently. You look beautiful this morning, Ma. She stopped. Slowly. The air shifted. Vivian turned, removing her sunglasses just enough to look at him properly. Her gaze moved from his face, to his uniform, to his shoes, then back to his face again. There was no warmth in her eyes, only irritation. Excuse me? She said sharply. Kola immediately lowered his gaze slightly. I just wanted to compliment you, Ma. Silence. Then, don't ever say that to me again. Her voice was cold, precise. It cut deeper than shouting. Kola blinked, slightly taken aback. I'm sorry, Ma. I didn't mean. I don't care what you meant, she snapped. A few employees walking by slowed subtly, sensing tension. Vivian stepped closer, not too close, but close enough to make her point clear. Do you know who you're talking to? Kola remained calm. No, Ma. Exactly, she said, and you should keep it that way. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder, her tone dripping with superiority. If you want to compliment someone, go and meet people in your category. Kola felt his chest tighten slightly. My category? Yes, she continued. Cleaners, fellow security staff, people on your level. The words landed heavily, not loud, but deliberate. I am not your mate, she added firmly. For a brief moment something flickered in Cola's eyes. Not anger, not yet, but disappointment, deep, unexpected. Still, he bowed his head slightly. I'm sorry, Ma. Vivian gave a dismissive wave of her hand, already turning away. Just do your job, she said. And with that, she walked toward the glass entrance doors, heels clicking, posture straight, confidence untouched. As the doors opened automatically, she stepped inside, disappearing into the world where she felt she belonged. Cola remained at the gate, still, silent. The sounds of the morning resumed around him, but inside, something had shifted. He exhaled slowly. So this is who she is, he thought. Not the charming, composed woman he had observed from a distance, but someone who measured human value by status. A junior staff member who had witnessed the exchange approached hesitantly. Sorry about that, sir, he said quietly. Cola looked at him surprised. It's okay. The young man shook his head. Some people just look down on others. Cola gave a faint nod. Yes, he said softly. Some people do. The staff member walked away. Cola turned his gaze back toward the entrance of the building. Through the glass, he could see Vivian laughing with colleagues, completely unaffected by what had just happened. No guilt, no reflection, nothing. Inside his mind, her image began to change. The beauty remained, but it no longer impressed him, because now he had seen beyond it. He adjusted his cap slightly, lowering it over his eyes again. One down, he whispered under his breath. But there was no satisfaction in his voice, only a quiet realization. This won't be easy. As another car approached the gate, Cola straightened once more. His test was far from over, and deeper truths were still waiting. By midday, the sun stood high over Abuja, pouring light through the wide glass panels of Cola's headquarters. Inside, the building maintained its calm sophistication, cool air, soft lighting, and the quiet rhythm of ambition at work. For Cola, still Adamu, the morning had already revealed more than he expected. Vivian's words lingered in his mind, not because they hurt, but because they exposed something deeper. Now, it was time for the second truth. The executive restaurant. The company restaurant wasn't just a place to eat, it was an experience. Designed with modern Nigerian elegance, it featured polished wooden floors, textured wall panels inspired by traditional patterns, and warm pendant lights that cast a golden glow over every table. Floor-to-ceiling windows allowed natural light to pour in, while indoor plants added a touch of calm sophistication. Executives and staff sat in carefully spaced sections, conversations flowing in low, controlled tones. At a corner table sat Isabella Mensa, alone, focused, untouchable. She ate with quiet precision, occasionally scrolling through her tablet. Her posture was straight, her movements calculated, nothing wasted, nothing careless. Even in a casual setting, Isabella looked like she was in a boardroom. Cola watched her, from a distance for a moment. This one, he thought, will be different. He adjusted his cap and walked toward her. The encounter. Good afternoon, Ma, he said politely. Isabella didn't respond immediately. Her eyes remained on her screen. Cola waited. Finally, she glanced up briefly, just enough to acknowledge his presence. What is it? Her tone wasn't harsh, but it wasn't kind either. You look very beautiful today, Cola said. She paused, then slowly lowered her tablet. Her eyes scanned him quickly. Uniform, posture, presence. Then she looked away again. No reaction, no appreciation, just indifference. Cola shifted slightly. I'm very hungry, he added softly. Please, can you help me buy food? This time, she stopped completely. Her fork rested mid-air as she turned to look at him properly. For a few seconds, she said nothing. Then, don't you receive salary? Cola nodded slightly. Yes, Ma, but... Then learn to manage it, she said flatly. Her tone carried no insult, but it carried no empathy either. It was purely practical. Cola slowly pulled out a chair and sat at the edge of her table. Isabella's reaction was immediate. "Excuse me," she said, her brows narrowing slightly. "Must you sit here?" "I'll leave soon," he replied calmly. "Just one question." She leaned back slightly, studying him now. There was curiosity in her eyes, but not warmth. "Make it quick," she said. "The questions." Cola nodded. "My former boss was a very kind man," he began, "but I don't know about Mr. Cola here. Can you tell me about him? Is he kind?" She tilted her head just a little. "Yes," she said, "he is. Just a fact." Cola nodded slowly. "And I heard he's single." She gave a small nod. "Yes." Cola leaned in slightly. "If he asked you to marry him, would you?" This time, she smiled. Not a shy smile, not an emotional one, but a confident, knowing smile. "Of course," she said. Cola let out a soft laugh. "Wow. Okay." He paused briefly. "What is your dream, as regards marriage?" That was the moment everything changed. Her truth revealed. Isabella's posture shifted. Her eyes lit up. Not with love, but with vision. "More?" Cola asked. "Yes," she continued, placing her fork down neatly. "I want access, influence, a global life." Her voice became more animated now. "I don't want to be limited to Nigeria. I want to travel whenever I want, live partly in the US, attend international events, be in rooms where decisions are made." Cola remained silent, listening, observing. She leaned slightly forward. "And marriage is one way to get there faster." The words landed clearly. No apology, no hesitation, just honesty. "And love?" Cola asked quietly. Isabella gave a small shrug. "Love can come later." Cola's chest tightened slightly. "And if it doesn't?" She picked up her glass of water, taking a slow sip. "Then at least I would have gained something valuable." Silence settled between them. Heavy, revealing, final, the exit. Cola nodded slowly. "Thank you for your time, Ma." He stood up. Isabella had already returned to her tablet. Conversation over. Interest gone. He walked away quietly. No anger, no shock, just clarity. A man's realization back at his post. Cola leaned slightly against the gate wall, staring ahead without really seeing anything. Vivian sought status. Isabella sought power. Neither saw him, not really, not as a man, but as a means. He exhaled slowly. "Two," he whispered. There was a heaviness in his voice now, not disappointment alone, but something deeper. Fatigue. He closed his eyes briefly. Only one left. Chidinma. The last name on his list. The last possibility. The last hope. He opened his eyes again, determination settling quietly within him. "If she fails," he murmured, "I'm done searching." As the afternoon sun softened and shadows stretched across the compound, Cola adjusted his cap once more. The test wasn't over yet, but now he understood what he was truly looking for. Not beauty, not ambition, but something far more rare. Night settled over Abuja like a soft curtain. From the top floor of his headquarters, the city stretched endlessly, lights flickering like distant stars, cars moving in slow, glowing lines, life continuing without pause. Inside his office, however, everything was still. Cola sat alone behind his desk, the soft amber lighting casting long shadows across the room. The massive space, so often filled with meetings, decisions, and authority, now felt quiet, almost heavy. On the wall behind him, the portrait of his late wife watched silently. Cola leaned back in his chair, loosening his tie slightly. "Two down," he said under his breath. "Vivian, Isabella." He closed his eyes briefly, replaying the moments. Vivian's sharp voice, Isabella's calculated calm. Different personalities, same truth. Neither of them saw beyond his wealth. He stood up slowly and walked toward the glass wall. The cool surface reflected his image back at him, but tonight it wasn't the powerful CEO he saw. It was a man, tired of being misunderstood. "A man like me," he murmured. "Is it even possible to be loved normally?" The question lingered in the air, unanswered. A house that echoes. Later that night, Kola returned home. The automatic gates slid open smoothly, welcoming him into the quiet luxury of his mansion. Soft lights illuminated the compound, highlighting perfectly trimmed hedges and modern architectural lines. Inside, everything was exactly as it should be. Perfect, clean, silent, too silent. He dropped his keys on the marble console and walked into the living room. The chandelier above cast a gentle glow over the carefully arranged furniture. Neutral-toned sofas, textured cushions, handcrafted decor pieces. Everything looked beautiful, but nothing felt alive. He loosened his tie completely this time and sank into the couch. For a while, he just sat there, doing nothing, thinking everything. His eyes drifted again to the piano. The same memories. He stood up and walked toward it slowly, as though pulled by something he couldn't resist. His fingers hovered above the keys, then pressed one gently. A soft note echoed, then another, and suddenly, he stopped. His chest tightened. The memories came too quickly. Her laughter, her voice, her presence. He stepped back sharply. "No," he whispered, "not tonight." A mother's truth. Just then, footsteps echoed softly behind him. "Kola." He turned. His mother stood at the entrance of the living room, wrapped in a simple but elegant wrapper, her face calm yet knowing. "You're back early," she said. Kola forced a small smile. "Long day." She studied him carefully. "I can see that." She walked toward him and sat down, patting the space beside her. "Come." He hesitated briefly, then sat. For a moment neither of them spoke. Then she said softly, "You tried again today, didn't you?" Kola glanced at her, surprised. "How did you know?" She smiled faintly. He exhaled deeply. "It's the same thing, Mama," he said. "Different faces, same intentions." She nodded slowly. "Money? Yes. Power? Yes. Position? Yes." She sighed. "That is the world we live in now." Kola leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. "What if I never find someone real?" he asked quietly. His mother didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked around the house. "This place," she said slowly, "is beautiful." Kola followed her gaze. "But it is empty," she added. Silence. "You are not afraid of marrying again," she said gently. Kola frowned slightly. "Yes, I am." "No," she shook her head. "You are afraid of choosing wrong." The words hit deeper than he expected. He leaned back slowly. "What if that's all there is?" he asked. "People pretending, people wanting something." His mother smiled softly. "Then you keep looking." He shook his head. "I'm tired, Mama." She reached out and held his hand. "You only need one person," she said. "Not many." He looked at her. One. The final name. That night, long after his mother had gone to rest, Kola returned to his study. The room was dim, lit only by a desk lamp. On the table lay a small notepad. 3 names written neatly: Vivian, Isabella, Chidinma. He stared at the first 2, then slowly drew a line through them. Only one name remained: Chidinma. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. "This is the last one," he whispered. "No pressure, no expectations, just truth." "If she fails," he said quietly, "I walk away from this completely. No more searching, no more testing, no more hope." But something inside him resisted that finality. A small voice, quiet, uncertain, yet persistent. "What if she's different?" Kola closed his eyes. For the first time in days, his thoughts slowed, not because he had answers, but because he had reached a point of decision. Tomorrow would decide everything. Not his business, not his wealth, but his heart. He turned off the light and stood up slowly. As he walked out of the room, his voice echoed faintly in the silence. Just one more chance. Outside, the city lights continued to glow, unaware that somewhere within it, a man stood on the edge of giving up on love, or finding it again. The morning felt different. Not because anything had changed in the company, but because everything had changed in Kola. Standing once again at the gate as Adamu. He adjusted his cap slowly, his eyes fixed on the entrance. This was it, the final test, the last name, the last chance. Employees streamed in, as usual. Voices, footsteps, greetings, distractions. But Kola barely noticed. His mind was focused on one person, Chidinma. Her arrival. She didn't arrive with noise, no dramatic entrance, no attention-seeking presence. Yet somehow, when she walked in, Kola noticed immediately. She stepped through the gate with quiet elegance, dressed in a well-tailored Ankara blazer paired with simple trousers. Her hair was neatly styled, her makeup soft and natural. No excess, no pressure to impress, just presence, real. Kola stepped forward. "Good morning, Ma." She stopped, turned, looked directly at him, and smiled, a genuine smile. "Good morning," she replied warmly. Something in Kola's chest shifted instantly. It was such a small thing, but it felt different. He wasn't invisible. He wasn't dismissed. He was acknowledged. "You look beautiful this morning," he said, more cautiously now. Chidinma laughed softly, not mockingly, but naturally. "Thank you," she said. "That's kind of you." No irritation, no pride, just appreciation. Kola blinked slightly. Even that alone was already different. An unexpected gesture. She took a step forward, then paused. "Have you eaten?" she asked suddenly. The question caught him off guard. For a moment, Kola didn't respond. "No, Ma," he said finally. She frowned slightly. "Why?" He hesitated. "Just trying to manage." She shook her head gently. "Come with me." Kola froze. "Ma? Come," she repeated, already turning toward the building. No one should start their day hungry. For a brief second, Kola just stood there, processing. Then he followed. The restaurant scene. Inside the company restaurant, the familiar modern elegance surrounded them. Wooden textures, soft lighting, carefully arranged spaces. But today, it felt different. Because Kola wasn't observing from a distance, he was part of the moment. Chidinma walked to the counter. "2 plates, please," she said. Kola stepped closer. "Ma, you don't have to." "It's okay," she replied simply. No drama, no performance. They sat at a quiet table. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she smiled. "So, what's your name?" "Adamu," he replied. "I'm Chidinma." "I know," he said instinctively, then quickly corrected himself. "I mean, I've heard." She chuckled lightly. "Of course." A real conversation. She began eating calmly, then looked up at him. "Where are you from, Adamu?" "Kano." "That's nice. I've always wanted to visit." Kola raised an eyebrow slightly. "Really?" "Yes," she nodded. "Different cultures interest me." He studied her quietly. There was no pretense, no calculation, just curiosity. "How is work treating you?" she asked. "It's okay," he said. "Still new. Just stay focused." There was a brief pause. Then Kola asked softly, "What do you think about Mr. Kola?" Chidinma didn't answer immediately. She took a moment, thinking. Then she said, "I think he's a good man." Kola's eyes narrowed slightly. "Why do you say that?" She smiled gently. "You can tell from how a company runs. People may complain, but there's structure, fairness." She paused. "But I also think—" "What?" Kola asked quietly. She looked at him. "I think he's lonely." Kola froze. Completely. No one had ever said that so plainly. He forced a small smile. "Why would you think that?" She shrugged lightly. "Sometimes you can just feel it. Success doesn't always mean happiness." Kola looked down at his plate briefly. Something tightened in his chest. Not pain, but recognition. "The question that matters. If he asked you to marry him," Kola said slowly, "would you?" Chidinma paused, not immediately answering, not reacting quickly like the others. She thought. Then she said quietly, "I would think about it." Kola looked up. "Only think?" She smiled softly. "Marriage is serious." "Why?" he pressed gently. She leaned back slightly, her voice calm and sincere. Because marriage is not about money, she said. It's about peace. She placed her hand lightly on the table. Respect. A pause. Partnership. Kola listened intently, every word landing deeper than the last. And your dream? He asked. Her expression softened. A home, she said quietly. Not just a house. Kola's breath slowed. A place where there's laughter, understanding. She smiled faintly. Children running around. Kola swallowed. And the husband? She looked at him directly. Present, she said, not just physically, but emotionally. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was full, real, a moment that changed everything. Kola leaned back slightly, studying her. No performance, no ambition hidden behind words, no calculation, just truth. For the first time in days, his heart felt something unfamiliar. Not doubt, not fear, but hope. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? She asked. For being kind. She smiled. It's nothing. But Kola knew it wasn't nothing. The final realization. As they stood to leave, Chidinma turned to him. Take care of yourself, Adamu, she said. And don't skip meals again. He nodded. I won't. She walked away, calm, unaware, unchanged. But Kola remained standing there for a moment, watching her go. And in that moment, he knew. She's different. Not because she was perfect, but because she was real. Kola adjusted his cap slowly, a faint smile forming for the first time since this began. The last hope, he whispered, didn't fail. And for the first time in years, Kola Adebayo felt something he thought he had lost forever. The atmosphere inside Kola's headquarters felt different that morning. Not chaotic, not tense, but expectant. A company-wide message had gone out the night before. All staff are to assemble in the Grand Conference Hall by 10 a.m. Mandatory. No explanation, no agenda, just an instruction. And when a man like Kola Adebayo called for a gathering without details, people noticed. The Grand Hall. By 9:45 a.m., the hall was already filling up. It was the pride of the building, a vast, luxurious space designed with modern Nigerian elegance. High ceilings carried suspended crystal chandeliers that reflected light across the polished floors. The walls blended textured panels with subtle traditional motifs, while a massive LED screen dominated the front stage. Rows of sleek leather seats stretched across the room, perfectly aligned. Executives sat in front, staff filled the middle and back. Low murmurs rippled through the air. What's going on? Is it a new project? Promotion announcement? No one knew. The three women, Vivian sat in the front row, legs crossed, posture perfect. Her outfit was carefully chosen, bold, expensive, attention-commanding. She adjusted her bracelet slightly, whispering to a colleague, "This must be something big." Her mind was already racing. Maybe a restructuring, maybe leadership changes. And somewhere deep inside, hope flickered. Beside another aisle sat Isabella, calm, composed, observing everything. Her tablet rested on her lap, though she wasn't reading. She was thinking, if this is strategic, I need to be ready. Her eyes occasionally scanned the room, not for people, but for opportunity. A few rows behind them sat Chidinma, simple, elegant, present. She wasn't guessing, wasn't calculating. She simply waited. Her hands rested calmly in her lap, her expression thoughtful but peaceful. The entrance. At exactly 10 o'clock a.m., the doors at the side of the stage opened. Silence fell instantly. Footsteps echoed, slow, confident, measured. Then he appeared. Kola Adebayo, not as Adamu, not hidden, not invisible, but as himself. Sharp suit, commanding presence, authority that filled the room without effort. A ripple moved through the crowd. Some stood instinctively, others gasped softly. Vivian straightened immediately, her face lighting up. Isabella's eyes sharpened. Chidinma simply looked at him, steady, calm. Kola walked to the center of the stage, paused, looked at them, all of them. "Good morning," he said. His voice carried easily across the hall. "Good morning, sir," the room responded in unison. He clasped his hands behind his back. For the past few days, he began slowly, I have been observing this company. A few people exchanged glances. Observing? What did he mean? Kola continued. Not from this stage. A pause. Not from my office. Another pause. But from a place most of you would never expect. The murmurs grew louder now. Vivian frowned slightly. Isabella leaned forward just a little. Chidinma's eyes remained fixed on him. Then Kola said it. I have been among you, as one of the security staff. Silence. Complete. Absolute. The words didn't register immediately. Then, shock, gasps erupted across the hall. What? No way. That Gateman? People began whispering rapidly. Confusion spread like wildfire. Vivian's expression froze. Her mind raced back. The gate, the compliment, her words, her stomach dropped. Isabella's fingers tightened slightly around her tablet. The restaurant, the conversation. Every word replayed instantly in her mind. Chidinma didn't move, but her eyes softened slightly. Now she understood. Truth unveiled. Kola raised his hand slightly. The room quieted. I needed to see something real, he said. Not rehearsed politeness, not calculated respect. His voice grew firmer. I needed to see how people treat others when they believe they are of no importance. The hall was silent again, heavy, reflective. He stepped forward slightly, and I saw everything. Vivian's moment. Vivian. Her name echoed sharply. She stood up immediately, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Yes, sir. Kola looked at her steadily. You believe class defines value, he said calmly. Her lips parted slightly. Sir, I didn't. You did, he interrupted, not harshly, but firmly. You spoke to a man based on his uniform, not his humanity. The room was completely still. Vivian's confidence cracked. I'm sorry, sir, she said quickly. I didn't know it was you. Kola shook his head slightly. That is exactly the problem. Silence. Isabella's moment. Isabella. She stood, composed, but quieter now. Yes, sir. You are intelligent, Kola said. Focused, strategic. A small flicker of relief crossed her face. Then, but you see people as opportunities, he continued. Her expression changed. You spoke of marriage as a pathway to power, he said. She held her ground. I was being honest, sir. I know, Kola replied, and that honesty revealed your truth. Chidinma's moment. Finally, Chidinma. She stood slowly, calm, unshaken. Yes, sir. Kola looked at her for a long moment. Then something in his expression softened. You saw a stranger, he said quietly, and treated him with dignity. No dramatic tone, just truth. You offered kindness without knowing who he was. The room felt different now, not tense, but aware. The choice. Kola took a slow breath. This was not just an observation, he said. It was a test. The words landed heavily. And now, I have my answer. Vivian's hands tightened. Isabella's gaze sharpened again. Chidinma remained still. Kola's voice softened slightly, but carried weight. In a world where people chase wealth, status, and control, he paused. I was searching for something rare. He turned toward Chidinma. Something genuine. Silence, deep, anticipating. And that is why, another pause, I choose you. Gasps filled the room. Vivian's face fell completely. Isabella blinked once, slow, processing. Chidinma's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't smile, didn't celebrate, didn't react like the others expected. Instead, she asked quietly, Are you sure? The question stunned everyone. Kola smiled, softly, honestly. For the first time in a long time, he looked directly at her. I am. A room transformed. The hall remained silent, but not in shock anymore, in realization. Something deeper than an announcement had happened. A truth had been exposed, not just about 3 women, but about everyone. This meeting is over, he said, but I hope you all learned something. As people began to rise slowly, whispers returned, but different now, quieter, thoughtful. Vivian sat down heavily, staring ahead. Isabella remained standing, lost in thought. Chidinma stood still for a moment longer, then slowly sat back down, because in that moment, her life had changed. But more importantly, a man who had almost given up on love had found a reason to believe again. The days after the revelation felt unreal. For the entire company, it was as if time had paused and restarted with a different meaning. Conversations changed. Laughter sounded more cautious. People walked differently through the halls, as though every interaction now carried weight. But for Kola, everything had become clear. After the hall, in the days following the conference, Vivian resigned quietly. No farewell speech, no dramatic exit, just a signature on a document and a private departure. Isabella remained in the company, but something in her had shifted. The confidence was still there, the intelligence still sharp, but now it was tempered with reflection. She no longer saw every interaction as a transaction. She started listening more, observing differently. But Chidinma, she remained unchanged, not because she was untouched by what happened, but because she had never been performing in the first place. Kola's return to self. That evening, Kola stood in his office again, but this time he wasn't restless. The city of Abuja stretched beyond his glass walls, glowing softly under the evening sky. But instead of emptiness, the space behind him now carried a strange sense of clarity. Tunde entered quietly. "Sir, everything has been settled as you requested." Kola nodded. "Thank you." There was a pause. Then Tunde asked cautiously, "Sir, and the ladies?" Kola didn't turn immediately. Then he said softly, "Some people were never meant to be chosen." A silence followed. "And others don't need to be tested again." Chidinma's life outside the test. Chidinma, unaware of everything that had been decided behind closed doors, continued her life as usual. Her office remained the same, calm, warm, balanced. Soft, natural light filtered through her windows, reflecting off the wooden desk and indoor plants that gave the space its life. She was reviewing a report when a knock came. "Come in," she said gently. A secretary stepped in. "Ma, you have been invited to a private meeting with the CEO." She paused. "Kola?" "Yes, Ma." Chidinma blinked slightly. "All right," she said calmly. "Schedule it." No excitement, no anxiety, just composure. The meeting. The private dining room inside Kola's residence was unlike anything else. Minimalist yet luxurious. Soft earth tones, warm lighting, handcrafted furniture sourced from across Nigeria, and large glass windows opening to a private garden filled with subtle greenery. A table was set for two. Nothing excessive, nothing distracting, just space. Kola stood near the window when she arrived. "Good evening," he said. "Good evening, sir," she replied politely. He smiled faintly. "Still formal?" She tilted her head slightly. "Should I not be?" A brief silence. Then Kola gestured toward the table. "Please, sit." They sat. For a while, neither spoke. Not out of discomfort, but out of awareness. Something important was about to happen. The truth without masks. "I owe you something." Chidinma looked at him carefully. "You don't owe me anything, sir." He shook his head. "I do." A pause. "I wasn't just a security man that day." She listened quietly. "I was the owner of the company." Her eyes widened slightly, but only for a moment. Then she settled again. "I know," she said softly. Kola froze. "You knew?" She nodded. "I suspected." He leaned forward slightly. "When?" "The way you listened," she said calmly. "The way you observed people. You didn't behave like an ordinary guard." A faint smile formed on her lips. "And besides, you asked questions no security man would care about." Kola let out a quiet breath. "So you knew, and still treated me the same?" She nodded again. "Yes." "Why?" Chidinma looked at him directly. "Because whether you were a gateman or a CEO, you were still a person." Silence. Deep. Honest. Kola leaned back slightly, visibly moved. "That day changed me," he admitted. "Me too," she replied. He looked at her. "How?" She hesitated briefly. Because I saw something rare, she said, a man who didn't just want to be loved, but wanted to understand love. The proposal. Kola stood slowly. The room seemed to quiet even further. He walked around the table and stopped in front of her. Not rushing, not performing, just present. Chidinma, he said softly. She looked up at him. I don't want perfection, he continued. I don't want strategy. A pause. I don't want control. His voice softened. I want peace. He knelt slightly, not dramatically, but sincerely, and I found that in you. Chidinma's breath slowed. She didn't interrupt. She didn't react quickly. She just listened. Kola continued. I lost someone I loved deeply. His voice lowered, and I thought I could never feel again. A pause. But you reminded me that love isn't replacement. He looked at her directly. It's renewal. Silence filled the room. Heavy, still, meaningful. Kola stood fully now. No pressure, he said gently. No expectations, just honesty. If you choose no, I will respect it. A pause. But if you choose yes, his voice softened, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you are never just loved, but valued. Her answer. Chidinma looked at him for a long time, not rushed, not influenced, just present in the moment. Then she asked quietly, Are you sure this isn't because of what I showed during the test? Kola shook his head immediately. No. A pause. This isn't about the test anymore. He stepped closer. This is about now. Silence again. Then, Chidinma smiled, softly, genuinely. I said I would think about it, she said. Kola nodded. I remember. She exhaled gently, and I've thought about it. A pause. I will marry you. Not because of who you are in the world, her voice softened, but because of who you are when no one is watching. Kola closed his eyes briefly. Relief, emotion, stillness. When he opened them again, he smiled. For real this time. A new life begins. Months later, the mansion that once felt empty had changed. Not in structure, but in meaning. Soft laughter now filled the hallways. Warm conversations replaced silence. The piano was no longer untouched, and this time, it played again. Chidinma didn't upgrade her life, she transformed it. Not by changing who she was, but by bringing who she was into a place that finally valued it. Isabella continued working in the company, now more grounded, more reflective. Vivian's story became a quiet lesson among staff. That charm, without character, fades. But character without noise endures. One evening, Kola stood on his balcony with Chidinma beside him. Abuja's lights stretched across the horizon. No pressure, no masks, no tests, just presence. Chidinma leaned slightly on the railing. It's funny, she said softly. What is? Kola asked. That everything started with pretending. Kola smiled faintly, and ended with truth. For the first time in years, Kola wasn't searching anymore. For the first time in years, Kola wasn't searching anymore. And for the first time ever, he wasn't alone. In a world where people often wear masks to be seen, the rarest thing you can find is someone who stays real even when they don't have to. Wealth can attract attention, power can attract admiration, but only character can build a home. If this story touched your heart, if it made you reflect, smile, or believe in love again, don't forget to like and share with someone who needs this message. And subscribe or follow for more powerful, emotional stories like this. Your support keeps these stories coming. More love, more lessons, more unforgettable moments coming your way.